Hi everybody, welcome ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dieter, your host in this new video edition by the Artelino company. The Artelino company is a little family company located in Bavaria in southern Germany. And we've sold art prints, mostly Japanese prints, in weekly online auctions since 2001. And currently, in the current auction, I think it's the number 1736, we have this 6-panel print. These are all separate panels, and we just arranged them in this square way for better display on the internet in our online catalog. 6 panels, also called hexaptic, if I'm not wrong and still remember my Greek. I'm a liar. The artist is Hanpo Yasuda. We have it in this current auction. It's rather rare. The artist is practically unknown, and the subject is something also very rare. It shows the funeral procession of the Japanese Emperor Meiji, who died in 1912. Funeral procession. Okay, and in this video I don't want to talk so much about this print, although it's rare actually, and it's something special. And if you have a little bit knowledge of Japanese prints, you should not let it go in the current auction. But okay, no talking about this hexaptic, but I want to talk more about the historical background. I want to talk about Emperor Meiji and about the so-called Meiji period. So a little bit more like a history lesson. Okay? In 1868, Yoshinobu, the last shogun, resigned. Or one should better say, well, he was forced to resign. This old system of shoguns, one could translate that with something like military leaders, was politically and economically at an end. It had been established several centuries ago. In 1192, the shogunate was established, and from that time on, the Japanese emperor had a purely representational function. You can practically say, okay, he was a toothless tiger living in a kind of a golden cage in the city of Kyoto. But the actual rulers were the shoguns. Yeah, they had the power. And since 1603, the Tokugawa clan, the Tokugawa family, yeah, regional warlords, they were in firm power, in firm possession of the shogunate until 1868. Yoshinobu, the last shogun from the Tokugawa family, goodbye. And during this period, this Tokugawa period, 1603 until 1868, until the last shogun, Japan was a completely isolated country. Yeah, they had intentionally isolated themselves from outside. No Japanese was allowed to leave the country. No foreigner was allowed to enter the country. There was a little bit of trade with the outside via the Dutch, but that's another story. Anyway, and this was a rather peaceful period, but at the price of this isolation and oppression inside the society of Japan. This isolation was broken by the American, to be more precise, by an American fleet of iron ships. Yeah. They had shown in the bay of, I think, Yokohama in 1853, went on shore, spoke with the Japanese and told them, yeah, we want to have a treaty with you. We want to have a treaty about commerce, and you guys now must open your country, and we will return in 1 year, and then, okay, in the meantime, you can think about that. Then we want to conclude a treaty. And this is how it happened. 1 year later, the Americans, with their frightening iron ships, they arrived again, and a treaty was signed with the Japanese. And this was the beginning of the opening of Japan under the pressure, first of the United States and then other nations like the British, the Russians, the French, they followed. In 1867, there was 1 year before the last shogun had resigned, Prince Mutsuhito, my goodness, he had ascended the throne as the new Japanese emperor. And yeah, we have an image here. He was only 15 years old at that time. That shows him maybe a few years later, I'm not so quite sure. And let's jump now to the other image. Well, there he was a little bit older, a few years or a few decades. Anyway, and this new young Japanese emperor, he called himself, he gave himself the name Meiji, which means the enlightened one. And Emperor Meiji, you can say, became the figurehead of a new era, the so-called Meiji Era. The Meiji Era lasted from 1868 until 1912, when Emperor Meiji passed away. When you saw this print before, the 6-panel print of the procession of his funeral. And this Meiji period was characterized by a complete total westernization of Japan. Japan had moved within record time, with incredibly fast, from a medieval country to the most powerful nation in Asia. Powerful economically, but also militarily. You can compare that to what we experienced over the last 20 and 30 years with China. In 1895, Japan defeated China, and a few years later, in 1904 until 1905, Japan defeated Russia in a land war in what is today some northern Korea and Mongolia, and defeated the Russian fleet completely. Yeah, okay. The Western world was astonished. So Japan then, at the beginning of the 20th century, had risen to the most powerful nation in Asia in military and economic sense. Well, after this little history excursion, I want to come back to the focus of my company, which are art prints, Japanese prints, woodblock prints especially. And I want to talk about the woodblock prints, which were created, and the role of these woodblock prints created during the Meiji Era. In the old times, before the westernization, woodblock prints had been a commercial trade, and the only technical method available for printing books, for printing textbooks, for creating images, for promotional purposes, for instance, announcements of a new theater, kabuki performance, and things like that. So that was a commercial trade, and it was exclusive. There was no competition from other printmaking methods. Completely different from the technical development in Europe. And now with the westernization during the Meiji period came the introduction of newspapers, photography, offset printmaking method. And this replaced woodblock prints, this old technique, commercially by and by, of course. It was inevitable, and commercially woodblock printmaking declined. It was a tough time for these printmakers, for these woodblock print makers, towards, let's say, the end of the 19th century. Nevertheless, woodblock printmaking still had created some great artists and had a lot of highlights during the Meiji period, so until the early 20th century. I want to name a few of the most famous printmakers of that time of the Meiji period. Collectors will know them as, for instance, Yoshitoshi Tsuyoka or Taiso. He's considered to be the greatest Meiji printmaker. Then Chikanobu, Kunichika, Gekko, Kyochika Kobayashi, or Hiroshige III, and quite a few more. Yeah, this is certainly not complete. And today, all these printmakers of the Meiji period, the best of them, they are often called the last masters of ukiyo-e. Ukiyo-e, my friends, is just another word for Japanese prints, so until 1900. Yeah, and now instead of talking, I now show you some of these typical woodblock prints from the Meiji period. Most, by the way, were created as triptychs, like this one. It's by Chikanobu. So triptych is a 3-panel print, and this was also typical and also popular, and it sold in the market, and it showed the imperial family here in the middle, the empress, and here the emperor, and well, another lady, we don't know who she is, servant, or he had a mistress actually, maybe it was his mistress, and a few more. And this was inside the Chiyoda compound, the imperial palace. Of course, Chikanobu couldn't go there and sketch. This was absolutely off limits. This was not open for the public, yeah. So this is just a fictive design here. But the imperial family, Emperor Meiji, Empress Meiji, they were very popular among the common people. That shows Emperor Meiji here with the military parade. During the Meiji period, of course, the nationalism grew in Japan. Yeah, the Japanese were very proud of their achievements. They were also very proud about the victory, about the Chinese and the Russians. Another one, and this shows now procession, an imperial procession. There you see the carriage inside the emperor and the empress, and probably their son. And there you see the Chiyoda Palace, this compound, and it went here through this Niubashi Bridge, and is on the way to the so-called Diet Building. The Diet Building was the building for the newly established parliament of the new Japan, the Meiji Japan. The next one, oh, very colorful. Here again, the Chiyoda Palace, here carriage with the imperial family. Okay, quite impressive. And these Meiji prints are often very colorful. Another one, yeah, this is celebration of the victory of Japan over the Chinese. This one is by Gekko Ogata. And I show you a last one, they're all triptychs. And here a horse race, yeah, Western horse race, here and fireworks. And there you see the imperial family again with the Emperor Meiji. Well, this is it. Long video today, and a little bit looking what's behind the pure aesthetic image of a Japanese print. And that's so fascinating. I mean, the history and not only regarding it as an art, and often it was not regarded as an art, but as a commercial trade by the Japanese. Anyway, today we like them, we collect them, and you can buy them in our weekly online auctions. And currently we have the auction number 1736, if I'm not wrong. And it will end tomorrow. I would be pleased to see you there, and not only see you as visitor, but bidding there in the auction. Okay, got the message? Wonderful. Well, thanks for watching, and take care of yourself, and goodbye.